here today with Dean DiMarzo from Longest Solo Ever, a very successful YouTube channel, and you are the first in-person guest because, of course, I started this podcast during a pandemic, and it wasn't easy to get guests to come see me when we were all hacking sickness at each other. But now we are better, we are vaccinated, and we are here today with a live guest. Dean, thanks for being here today.
How's it going? Thanks for having me here today. Very
Absolutely.
excited.
So what I want to talk about today a little bit is your YouTube channel, your brand, and what you've achieved online through this process. And I'll also add that as I stare at all these cameras looking at me, that this is the first video podcast because it would be absolutely insane for me to have you here today and not do video because it's something I've been reluctant to do despite doing a lot of video work elsewhere. I just haven't integrated it yet into my podcast. So I thought today would be the day. It's a first of many things today.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about video. How'd you get into it? Where'd you get started? I know you got started really young, and somewhere on that internet is very, very young teenage Dean rocking and rolling on the YouTubes.
Yeah. I actually got started before YouTube on MySpace, believe it or not. So when I was probably 14 or 15, I would guess, I was just starting to play guitar. I'd been playing a couple years at that point, and I wanted to show off cool guitar stuff I could do. So I had the family camcorder, which shot to digital tape, which was like this weird space in between tape and hard drive storage we have now.
After the mini disc player.
After the mini disc player, thank God. So I would shoot these videos of me covering, guitar solos from various songs. And this was before any kind of copyright protection on the internet either. So it was just, putting the song on, play the guitar solo, throw it up on MySpace and hope somebody watched it.
Now, what year is this? So there's probably some people just starting their business who don't even know what MySpace is.
Yeah, that would have been 2004, 2005. That was the predecessor to Facebook, I would say.
Yep.
And YouTube came out in 2006. My very first video was posted.
I don't know if it's worth saying, but MySpace was huge for music.
Enormous.
Yeah, it was like that was the one thing that it died a very, very quick death once Facebook came out, but music lingered on MySpace for quite a while when everyone else had migrated to Facebook. There were still a lot of bands and musicians that kind of clung on to MySpace because of the video features and the things that it had on there.
Yeah, I mean, so many huge bands got discovered and grew entirely on MySpace to major label status from there. So there was definitely that was the start of this feeling of you can create something and put it on the internet and it can actually take you someplace. MySpace is where it felt like that really first started. And then YouTube is where that really came to fruition. So YouTube came around a couple years after that in 2006. I posted a video of myself playing some crazy metal guitar solo song. And that through probably a pure lack of supply of guitar solos on the internet at the time, blew up to some couple million views and got me.
And how old are you at this point?
I would have been 15 or 16.
Right, so 15 or 16, you put out this song, and you it's almost like a one-hit wonder at that time.
Absolutely.
You hit it big, you get millions of views, which is still, I mean, I know there's a lot of people who get a lot of views, but when you think about the idea that you can put a piece of content up that a million people watch.
Right, just picturing a million people.
It's absolutely insane.
Several football fields.
You look at TV shows today, and some of the highest rated television shows on television are drawing anywhere between 6 million and 10 million people to watch an episode. So the idea that someone's going to watch, a million people are going to watch you on the internet is really, when you put it into perspective, astonishing.
Right, to get even in the ballpark of what a major network can achieve is insane that we can do this in our bedroom here. So after that point, I kept posting videos, but I wasn't diligent about it. I wasn't serious about it. I was 16. I had other stuff going on at the time. And it, kind of lingered there for a bit. This was before being a YouTuber was really a thing, even. Right. There were a couple people who were like trying to make it a career of some kind, but there was no monetization on YouTube. There were no ads being run on YouTube. They didn't even have a way to monetize it for themselves, barely. Right. They got acquired by Google a couple years later, and Google finally started to figure it out. But
let's talk about monetization for 1 second in terms of YouTube. For a lot of people who don't know, YouTube will pay you to post videos on their platform. And a lot of people don't know it because you have to meet a certain criteria to become eligible for monetization. That wasn't always the case, but certainly within the last 2 or 3 years, I'd say, right? You need to meet these requirements, which are, I believe, you have to have at least 1,000 subscribers.
Yep.
And you need, is it 4,000 watch hours?
Yes.
And those are the two main criteria, right?
That's it. There's a couple other more subjective criteria. Each channel is reviewed by a real person before it's approved for monetization. They'll go through it and make sure it's not just, reposted content from other channels,
right.
Anything really questionable subject matter, anything like that they probably wouldn't want to run ads on anyway. So there is another little nebulous bit of approval there. But right. For the most part, yeah, if you can get to 1,000 subscribers, 4,000 watch hours, and you're making, let's say, general audience content,
right.
that would be appropriate for an all ages situation, you're probably going to get monetized. You'll probably earn anywhere from $1 to $5 per 1,000 views that you get.
Okay, so YouTube. Once I get monetized, I can't just immediately retire because I'm now rich and famous on YouTube.
Not quite.
So you were about to say, how much money do you actually get per view or per 1,000 views?
Yeah, I'm on the short end of the stick with that because of a few reasons. One, I'm creating music videos, which are unfortunately one of the lowest paid categories on YouTube. My niche is particularly geared towards mostly children. I play music from video games that I grew up with and video games that are popular now, and as a result tend to attract a pretty young audience of listeners. That young audience probably doesn't have a lot of disposable income to spend on things that they would see in ads, and as a result do not get very high ad rates for me as a content provider. So I earn around 65 cents per 1,000 views.
Per 1,000 views, right? And that's kind of, you said, towards the low end.
That's the bottom of the barrel.
What would be an example at the high end? If you were doing something that was in a very lucrative environment to an affluent community of viewers, what would be the high end of that spectrum?
Sure. Stock trading, crypto, anything relating to high-end luxury items or anything, those would be in the $15, $25, $30 per 1,000 views.
Oh, wow.
Range.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's
and then
more than I would expect.
At the really high end, you can have 50 or 60 if you're talking about incredibly specialized niches like, educational content about specialized medical equipment, for example. I've seen get a ridiculously high ad rate, but it's got a ridiculously small target audience.
Right. So obviously, the broader the video and the more mass appeal it has, chances are the lower the ad rates are going to be. And when you have a video that's very, very specific and sought after, like you said, medical equipment, videos that doctors are watching, you're probably going to get a lot fewer views, but you will get more money from YouTube, from the ad share. Now, the only reason I want to talk about that a little bit is because as a business, almost every guest that's been on this show has at some point touched on how video has been the most powerful tool that they've had in their marketing toolkit. Every guest has said that they've tried paid AdWords, they've tried blogging, maybe podcasting, they've done all this stuff, but it was always the video that stood out and helped them and had the most tangible return on investment. And in some instances, if anyone, because Dean and I are both musicians, Reverb is a website that's like a marketplace for used instruments. So it's like eBay just for used instruments and musical gear. Reverb has built an entire YouTube channel around all these products and all this gear, which in and of itself has now become a profit-driving division of Reverb. Like, they did it to help grow their website, but now because they get so many views and they have so many videos, that itself is generating money for the company now.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that channel has so many entertaining programs on it. They have several separate series where they'll go through classic 80s songs and recreate every synth sound they hear. They'll talk about the different drum beats that were featured on, famous records. And that whole channel has become this awesome source of entertainment and education for musicians, and as a result, a fantastic source of revenue for Reverb, both in ad revenue and, of course, driving traffic to their website.
Yeah, imagine that. Imagine having a platform where you are creating essentially
and advertisements that you get paid for.
And now you're getting paid for
That's
it. And
the dream.
you creating ads becomes part of your business.
Yeah.
So this is the potential on YouTube. So I want to jump back into your story. So you're 16, you hit it big, now you're in school, you kind of post some videos here and there. When do you get back on the saddle and start focusing on video again?
About 15 years later.
Right. And at this point, you're not really advertising anything.
No.
This is just your hobby. It's still your passion. You love music. You're not, advertising a business you already have. You're just creating fun videos.
Yeah, absolutely. I always just played the songs I loved. When I was a teenager, it was Red Hot Chili Peppers and some metal guitar stuff. Now in my 20s, I realized, man, I really love the video game music I grew up with, and I started diving more into that stuff. Found a real audience there, and it started growing slowly but surely. Got from 15,000 to 25,000 subscribers, had some good growth throughout there. And then this past year, I just happened to hit upon this trend that was particularly popular with some kids right now. And that took me from 25,000 to, I think I'm at 143,000 today.
Wow. And that happened you went from 25,000 to today, and in what time? It was a very narrow
About
time.
2 or 3 months it happened.
So that is like some serious hyper growth. So there's two things I want to talk about, because there's two things we spoke about offline that I want to bring onto the podcast. One, and which is important, which I believe in, is personal branding. Personal branding has become a really popular thing in the business community and LinkedIn. You see a lot of these personal branding coaches and stuff like that. And I look at what you've done, and I see it from the perspective that you've built a personal brand for yourself. What did you say when I suggested that, though?
I said I completely disagree with that, and that I think personal branding is not essential for the success of a business. I do think it's helpful. It's an enhancer to an existing successful business. But I think first and foremost, above everything else, the good product will take you a lot farther than personal branding will go. And the reason I have such an extreme immediate reaction to this is because of the number of times both I've been through this and people I've been coaching have been through this, where they'll get obsessed with their logo, their cover image on YouTube, their band name, their channel name, and they go into complete analysis paralysis for months, years on this.
And this, I can say, working with a lot of businesses and business people, it is exceptionally common that people will especially in the beginning, will agonize over what color logo, what shape, how do I make my business card, what type of paper do I print on, all these things that you soon realize aren't really relevant to you making money in your business.
Absolutely.
Or it plays a very small role in the scheme of things, right? But I will say that by you focusing on content, and let's make it perfectly clear, I think everyone knows this, content is king. Good content is king. And I know, and anyone who's watched YouTube knows that there are people extremely successful. Gary Vee is a good example of this. He'll just hold his phone up in the air. He'll shoot a selfie, no special microphone, no special lights or high-end cameras, and he has built an incredible business based on this impromptu, spontaneous content production, because the content has a lot of value. So it doesn't really matter what it looks like, right? Then you've got the situation where you have people who put a lot of time and a lot of money into the production value of whatever it is they're posting. And if it's paired with excellent content, sure, it doesn't hurt. Everyone wants it to sound great. Everyone wants it to look pretty. At the end of the day, you really just need the content, right? You just need an answer to the question you have, or you need a solution to the problem you're having. And if you get that, you're always very satisfied. Then, of course, we've seen the people who go overboard. They spend all this money in production value, but the content just sucks, and they get nowhere.
Yep. Absolutely. And that's I guess the point I would try to get across is like, start with just doing the thing. Just put the thing out there, and if it succeeds, you have something good. I talk to people who have had YouTube channels for 2 or 3 years and they have 80 subscribers.
Yeah.
They're obsessing about their brand, they're obsessing about their little details. And I'm just thinking, the only thing I can think is the content is not there. Something is fundamentally flawed there if you haven't gotten a couple thousand subscribers at that point.
Right. for a business, you're a small business, or maybe you're an established business, but you don't have a video presence. And when I talk about personal branding, to take a little bit of a twist of where we started with that conversation, when I look at you and I say, wow, you've built a personal brand, what I'm thinking to myself is that you have repeatedly provided great content. And in doing that, you have built trust. And you have built authority. And those things are something that, again, has been a very common theme on this podcast. In almost every episode, we talk about building trust, whether you are a YouTuber with your fans or whether you're a business with your customers, whatever the case may be, trust is really fundamentally the most important thing. And if somebody trusts you and they respect you, then your content will hopefully help them, and they will continue to enjoy it, and they will follow you on the things you do. And again, Gary Vee is another example of this. People have followed him from the beginning of his career selling, bottles of wine, again, spontaneously on a phone. Hey, check out this red I'm drinking, in his dad's business, right, in the basement, shooting these videos, and it grew into a, God knows how large of a financial empire for him.
Yeah, exactly. Consulting, advertising, everything.
But the reason that people follow him along his journey is because they do trust him. And that's why I say you've built this incredible personal brand, because it's really easy for any of us to underestimate all of the things that we do beforehand that lead to success. And I think that's a common thread, too, with a lot of people in a lot of industries. We all turn on the TV at some point or look at the news and say, oh, look, this guy's just killing. He's making gazillions of dollars. Or look at what this woman is. She's CEO of the company. She just woke up one day and got that job. And it's really easy to do that and kind of disregard all of the things that happened for the 10 or 15 years that you didn't see on YouTube or that you didn't see beforehand, right? So in that respect, I feel that you've built a very good personal brand for yourself, where as a musician, it will carry over into other things you do musically, which it has, right?
Yeah.
Because you started another channel.
So here's my counter argument to that. I started a second YouTube channel as a little experiment in a completely different niche, making what are called chiptunes, which are like music that's supposed to sound like it was created on a classic Sega Genesis or Super Nintendo or whatever. So I started this second channel under a completely different name, and I did not talk about it on my main channel for weeks. And that got to 2,000 or 3,000 subscribers within a couple weeks. And that was my goal, to try and see if I could, I don't know, kind of prove to myself, hey, can I just get a thing off the ground from scratch again? And that is, I think, the more important skill. It absolutely incredibly important to have an audience that trusts you, because when they do trust you, you can absolutely make the most of that relationship with them. But also to be able to have the skills to build something from scratch. If I lost Longest Solo Ever tomorrow, if something happened and that channel was destroyed, if YouTube was destroyed, I have the skill set, I feel, to build something new from scratch. And that's what I wanted to prove to myself with that.
Which goes to show, because one of the most common things that I hear from people when talking about video is, I can't do it. It's too hard. The first thing, it's too hard. It's too hard to do video, right? All people do now is take videos on Instagram and pictures of themselves and social media, but yet for some reason, when it comes to business, you just freeze up. You don't want to talk about it. I'm guilty of it. Here we are. This is the first video shoot. I've got 27 podcast episodes.
I've been telling them for weeks.
Yeah, and I'm a video guy. I love video. I shoot video all the time in my day job. Like, I love video. I'm passionate about it. I believe in video. But yet, even with me being comfortable in front of the camera, being comfortable with the equipment, being comfortable with the lighting, for whatever reason, it came to this podcast, and I said, well, I don't know. I'm just not ready for that yet. Like, it's hard enough talking into a microphone, and there's all these little apprehensions you get, right? And all these little challenges. But the biggest one is it's too hard, which it's not. We've already said that you can literally, if you have a phone, you've got a video camera.
Right.
And all you have to do is turn it around. You don't have to turn it around. Just hit record, and you're recording. And that is fine. That's perfect. That's step one. The second thing people always say is it's not worth it, because there's just too many people on YouTube now. It's overcrowded. You can't be successful on YouTube today. You only can be successful if you're you and you started 15 years ago, right?
Yeah. No, people have been saying it's too late to start on YouTube since 2010. and then again in 2012, and then 2015. And here we are 6 years later, and brand new channels are still popping up out of nowhere.
Wait, you're telling me there's been someone
success.
who's gotten famous on YouTube between 2010 and now?
Last year.
Despite it being saturated in 2010?
So in in the YouTube world, one of the most tired cliches is like the kid that starts a Minecraft channel and wants to play the video game Minecraft on YouTube, and it's the most disgustingly saturated niche on YouTube. There are billions of channels up there of just kids playing Minecraft. Last year, a channel started from absolutely nothing. This guy named Dream, and I think he has some 20 million subscribers now, just playing Minecraft. Yeah, so there is no niche too saturated to succeed in any way if you do a good enough job, which you have to just believe in yourself that you can.
Yeah, it's definitely never too late to get started. We say that about music, right? You're never too young. It's never too late to start to start an instrument or to learn music, and it's never too late to start on YouTube because, like you said, there's a million other examples outside of YouTube too. I mean, you just look at the movie industry. Look at Hollywood.
Right.
Hollywood's made tens of thousands of films over the years.
Right. It's too late to start in movies.
Right. Imagine if every director just said, "It's too hard. It's too late. It's everyone makes movies now. It's stupid.
Right.
I'm not."
Should have started in the '60s.
Right. Yeah, we still have hit movies that gross more money now than historically any movie ever has.
Exactly.
Despite the fact that there's a million other places to get your content.
All right. And the answer is there's more of an audience now. Billions and billions of more people are coming online in the next few years.
Right.
It's some couple billion new viewers, new customers that'll be available in the next 5 years or something. I read.
Yeah, so I'm glad you mentioned that because there's two things I also wanted to cover. We had touched on authority before. Who is the governing body of authority on YouTube? Like, what do you have to do? Who's the governing body that issues you the certificate that says that you are now the authority for a certain subject?
It's the number of views you get. That's it. It's the audience.
Okay, so there is nobody.
No.
Yeah,
exactly.
Obviously, that's a joke, but
Those are trick questions.
Yeah, but my point is that the goal for a business, for you as a business owner wanting to sell a product and or a service, is to become the authority in that space. And there is nobody who does that. You are the one who decides you're going to be the authority. Right? I mean, that you're
Absolutely.
the only one.
And
creating content, and then your audience will come to you seeking. And if you create good content that's trustworthy, that's honest and sincere, you will build a loyal following that will trust you, and then you naturally become the authority in that space.
Absolutely.
And how much does it cost to become an authority in that space?
Absolutely nothing if you already have a phone. That's
right.
it.
If you have a phone, you've got an internet connection, you've got the ability and the potential to become an authority in whatever space it is that your business is in.
Yeah.
The second thing that I wanted to touch upon with creating content, because you talked about this whole new audience coming in, repurposable content.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that content doesn't go away, and most content does not become irrelevant, right? Now, I know there's some exceptions, right? We've talked about, I have a tech channel for fun. Technology moves very, very fast. No one wants to go back and watch a review of a VCR from 1988. If they could, they
sounds kind of interesting.
Maybe it would be neat. But for most things, if it's educational content of any capacity, business, music, whatever it is, tutorials, anything like that, once you create it, it's there forever.
Right. We call that evergreen content.
Yeah, it doesn't go away. It doesn't go bad. It doesn't go stale. Mm-hmm. I mean, again, like anyone who's listening to this, or if you're watching this, how many times do you punch up a video, and it might be a video that's 15 years old on YouTube that was shot in someone's basement with a really, really bad video camera at the time, but again, it gives the answer.
Yeah, it answers that one question. It's the only video that answers that question. Absolutely.
And in terms of repurposing this content, let's think about, because I know we've discussed, and I'll share here, the strategy that I'm doing right now for this podcast and this video. The thought that I had is, hey, listen, I create this video. Now the podcast is a visual element on YouTube, right? So if you like this episode, you can listen to it in your car. Or now you say, I want to see that. I want to watch it. I want to see what Dean looks like. I don't want to really see what Justin looks like. He's ugly, but I do want to see what Dean looks like. You can now go on YouTube and you can watch that. Now I can also pull little pieces of this interview, the little nuggets that people are going to appreciate. That could go on Instagram. That could go on TikTok. That could go on Facebook. It could go on my website. Maybe there's a medium format for someone who doesn't want to sit through 40 minutes of a discussion about YouTube. You just want to know what are the 5 or 6 real highlights. So maybe there's a 3-minute version of this video that can go out. And again, go on a bunch of different platforms. So my point here is that when you create content, be it audio content, video content, the music that you write, that content is there forever, and you will potentially be able to reuse it over and over and over and over again. And maybe some point you decide you want to make an audiobook, and now you've got, hundreds of hours of podcasts to pull audio from and construct this. And I think a great example that I always use is Dave Ramsey, who is a popular financial coach. He had 7 baby steps. And I mean, these are literally 7 bullet points. And he's built an empire worth hundreds of millions, if not over $1 billion, based on 7 little things that you could write on a cocktail napkin. And he's taken this content and he's expounded upon it over and over and over again. He's written 7 or 8 books that are pretty much all exactly the same, just focused on those 7 bullet points. But it was a great example of how this content can be repurposed over and over again and provide great value. Let's say you get this going. You're on YouTube now, you're comfortable doing the video stuff. And just one thing I want to mention really fast is, speaking of video, as I look and I'm sweating in front of 3 cameras in front of me, one thing that is odd, that if you've never done it before, for me at least, was the hardest thing to get over, is talking to yourself. If I do a solo podcast, every other episode I usually do a solo podcast, I'm sitting here in this room with this microphone, staring at a wall, talking to myself, pretending there's an audience there. In this case, I'm looking out. This is not live.
Right, we're doing an imaginary talk show here.
Yeah, imaginary talk. I see these cameras here, and there's still something a little bit intimidating about it. Even though I can edit it, I'm going to edit this before it goes live, but right. I'm staring at it, I'm saying, oh my God, there's all these cameras, there's people staring at me.
Yep.
How do you get over that?
It's like with any kind of stage fright, and, I've had to get over every kind of stage fright, from this to actual, physical stages in front of thousands of people. And you just do it enough times and it gets easier.
So just pure exposure therapy.
It is pure exposure therapy. Part of it is just realizing you kind of have to be an actor. You have to pretend that you are talking to somebody. When I'm filming my music videos, I'm literally, dancing around with a guitar in my basement alone at 4 a.m, playing Super Mario Brothers songs. It doesn't get weirder than that. So once you kind of acknowledge the strangeness and just look it in the face, it gets a lot easier.
Yeah, it is a bizarre feeling, but yeah. I agree with you. You do get over it very quickly because it really is. There's no reason to be nervous.
Right. There's nobody there.
If you screw up, you hit stop, you start again.
That's the best part. We've screwed up so many times. We've stopped and started.
Right. You screw up a second time, you stop. You screw up a third time, you stop and start. I mean, you could do this all day long. If you're a perfectionist, this is bad, because now you're back to that analysis paralysis thing with the personal branding, where you're thinking to yourself, this has to be absolutely perfect. And now you're spending hours and hours and hours trying to go. Yeah. So that can backfire, but generally speaking, just go for it, right? Video it, get it up. Getting it out there is more important than beating it to death and trying to perfect it.
Right.
You've got time to perfect it on your next run. When you repurpose it the next time, make it a little bit better, And in terms of production, that's something you have done as well on your channel, right? You said you started with an old video camera.
Yes, enormously so. Yeah. So I my gear has improved over the years for sure. That was never my strongest suit. I would say I only really had proper video equipment in the past year. And yet still got to, 25,000 something subscribers. But you mentioned, perfectionism, beating a dead horse situation. And that's something I really worked on this year, that 100% changed my process and probably had a big hand in the success that I had this year. And that was applying the 80-20 rule to my process, finding the 20% of my process that was actually providing 80% of the value, and finding the 20% of my process that was causing 80% of my pain. For example, I used to shoot live drum videos of every song. So I'd play the drums live and then edit the drums, edit the video for the drums, tune the drums each time, change the heads, and it would take hours to get the drums just right. I would do these complex, involved edits with split screen video and crazy stuff going on, and none of it really made a difference in the performance of a video. None of it really changed the music of the video, right?
And here as a drummer, I thought it was the guitar that wasn't really that important.
Yeah, no, nobody cares about the drummer. So, but cutting out these steps that I thought were so essential to the fundamental being of my channel made absolutely zero difference in the performance of my videos, and took my productions down from taking about 30 hours per video to 3 or 4 hours now. I also streamlined my mixing and editing process a lot, basically by just saying, I'm going to get it right on the first try, and I'm not going to obsess over it after that.
Yeah. And I think that's another tip, if we give out a little nugget here, would be that you don't have to be able to do it all.
Yeah.
If you're comfortable, if you can just get your camera on and you can shoot your video and you bang it, you can always outsource editing easily.
Absolutely.
There's
with stuff like Fiverr, absolutely.
Yeah, tons of websites you can go to where for really inexpensive prices, you can have someone edit, and if they want to add a graphic or your logo to it, it's really easy to get that done. So that should never be, if that's something you know nothing about, that you don't want to get involved with, don't get hung up on that. Last thing, circling YouTube, we kind of talked about how YouTube can even become its own business. Other than the ad share, there are other ways that people on YouTube make money. So let's talk about what are the different avenues of revenue for someone who's successful on YouTube.
Avenues of revenue. I like that.
Avenues
That's
of
a book title. Yeah, so most people think of either YouTube ads as your main source of income, or another one you'll see a lot, especially lately, are sponsorships. You'll hear a YouTuber stop in the middle of the video to say, "This video is brought to you by," and then marketing and service podcast. And those YouTubers are paid a flat fee usually for that spot in their video.